on a road trip, I can guarantee you nobody is going to drive more than 500 kilometers straight. If you do, you really have to check your bladder. Interesting to note about the LFP battery chemistry is that Hyundai are developing their own LFP batteries as well, something they say we are in the new Hyundai Kona. Now the Kona is a multi-energy vehicle, which means it's available as petrol, as hybrid and as full electric, which is of course the version we are checking out today. In particular, we're diving into the tech of this vehicle, which has gotten quite an upgrade for this new 2024 variant. Now, rewind back a few years to 2018, the electric version of the Kona made up just 9% of the overall fleet sales. Fast forward a few years, and that number now, that market share, is well over 20%, a number which Hyundai only expects to grow in the coming decade. But, as always, I'm Luke. Welcome to another exciting episode of The Future is Electric. Now let's start off by talking about the underlying platform. So this is the K3 platform, which we've already seen on the channel when we reviewed the Kia Niro EV, which is a close sibling to this vehicle. Now what I like about this redesigned Kona is that when the original petrol Kona was released a few years back, the hybrid and full electric models were sort of transformed from the existing and made to fit the existing petrol design. But for this redesign, they went electric first and then converted that platform to fit an internal combustion engine and a hybrid powertrain. So the full electric model gets all the advantages you'd expect of an electric vehicle. So for example, this interior cabin space, which is very roomy, especially for a compact SUV, the category of vehicle this lies in, means we get a lot of rear passenger space. In fact, even in my driving position, the legroom at the back is ample. I am 1.80 meters tall. We also get a frunk, something we were missing in the original Kona. And although it's not huge, it's more than big enough to store, say, your charging cable, which otherwise gets thrown around in the boot, right? Or another nice use for that frunk, which I think many people don't think about, is when you get takeaway and it's will stink up your car afterwards, you can put it in the frunk where it's outside of the cabin. So that's a great thing to see. So the Kona is actually part of an electrification strategy by Hyundai, which is going to see no less than 11 full electric models released to the market by 2030. So this is a permanent magnet synchronous electric motor, as we're used to seeing on the channel. This is a front wheel drive single motor car. However, that motor does come in two different power options depending on the battery size you pick for the vehicle. Battery sizes we'll get into in a second. So the slower, so to speak, or less powerful variant is 133 horsepower. More powerful variant, 201 horsepower, which is plenty, especially for this size of vehicle. Both variants deliver 255 Newton meters of torque, and the acceleration from a standstill to 100 kilometers per hour is achieved in just 7.8 seconds, which, let me tell you, for a car like this is, for a family car, is plenty. However, if you've never driven an electric vehicle, you do have to experience this instant jolt of power and torque, because even though these acceleration speeds are fast, they actually feel a lot faster. But let me tell you more on this in my driving video, where I drive the car and tell you about the driving experience and a lot more. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you're notified with that notification bell when that video goes live, because it is being released next very soon. So let's talk about the high voltage battery. This is the most important and expensive component in an electric vehicle, and I feel traditional car reviews just don't give it the love and importance it deserves. So that high voltage battery pack found under the passenger compartment. But as you can see, even with the seat in the highest position over here, actually it can go even higher. I'm 1.80 m and that does not impact my headroom whatsoever. So that's great. Now there are two battery size options to choose from, as was the case with the traditional previous version of the Kona. The smaller battery variant though has changed inside significantly. So before you could get a 39 kWh battery pack. This is now up to 48.4 kWh. That's quite significant, and I think that nearly 50 kWh battery pack is ideal for Malta. In fact, this will mean the average driver here in Malta in a city-like driving feel is going to be charging his or her car just once every week and a half or 9 days. Now, the larger battery variant is up from the 64 kWh to 65.4 kWh. So a small change there. However, I don't think they had to make it any larger. Any larger would have just increased the cost. And frankly, I think that is plenty. In fact, the range is plenty, as we'll discuss in a second. But if you want to go for the highest spec version or the bigger range version, if you're, say, going on long road trips outside of Malta, then the bigger battery option is there and available for you as well. Now, perhaps what's more important than the battery size is the battery chemistry. And who is supplying those battery cells to Hyundai? So, here in Europe, the car is being assembled here, and so are the batteries. In fact, for Europe, Hyundai are partnering with LG, and they build and supply the batteries for this car, which are of the nickel, cobalt, manganese, NCM battery chemistry. However, back in South Korea, they are partnering with Chinese battery manufacturer CATL, and they're actually providing LFP battery cells for the made in South Korea vehicles, which I like a lot. And my only sort of question here to Hyundai is, when are we going to see the LFP battery cells also coming to Europe? I've talked plenty about these batteries on the channel, and I do prefer them for a number of reasons. They give a bigger cycle life. They are safer, and they can be charged up to 100% full without any degradation issues. So LFP is definitely the way to go, and I'm waiting for them to come to the European version. Does that mean that I just wait and hold off? No. My experience with electric vehicles here in Malta has been purely with the NCM chemistry. In fact, those are the ones that were available, and from where I'm sitting, we have EVs in the family which are nearly 8 years old, and our degradation of the battery is, you could say, non-existent. The range has not been impacted after 8 years, nearly 8 years of use here in Malta. So NCM for Malta works just fine, though when LFP becomes available, then yes, I would definitely pick that option. Interesting to note about the LFP battery chemistry is that Hyundai are developing their own LFP batteries as well, something they say will come to their cheaper electric models by 2025. Besides the battery technology, another important consideration is the battery cooling technology, and there are a number of technologies being employed here. So firstly, we have active air vents in the front of the vehicle, as we already saw with the Hyundai Ioniq 5. These are air vents which open and close depending on the requirement to cool the electric motor and also the battery pack. But when we don't need it, they are closed shut to not affect the aerodynamics of the vehicle. The car also takes a card out of the Tesla playbook. It has battery preconditioning, which means when it knows you're about to charge because you've plugged in a charger into your sat-nav, or you can manually activate it, right? It's going to bring up the battery temperature to that ideal temperature of 25 degrees, which is perfect for charging conditions. This means that when you get to the charger, you can charge at a faster rate. So another consideration with the battery pack is the liquid cooling battery system being done at the module level. Now, while I haven't found this documented, I would assume that Hyundai are, like they've done with a lot of the other components of this vehicle, taking a card out of the Hyundai Ioniq 5, where they have a multi-channel cooling circuit, which I've talked in detail about in my Hyundai Ioniq 5 review. So if you want to check more about that, link up or in the description below. Now, another interesting note is that the heat pump does come as standard with this car. That's an important consideration because on some of these you have to take it as an option, and on others it's frankly not even available yet at all. Why is a heat pump so essential? So in an internal combustion car, we use heat from the engine to help heat the cabin. In an electric car, the electric motor does not generate that volume of heat. That's a good thing because it means that motor is efficient, but a bad thing when it comes to heating the cabin. So this is where a heat pump is ideal. So we have to heat the cabin using electricity from the battery, which means without a heat pump, your range is going to be significantly affected, right? But with a heat pump, which is an extremely efficient device, by consuming 1 kilowatt of electricity, it is able to move 3 to 6 kilowatts worth of heat, which makes it extremely efficient. Very important for electric vehicles. I don't know if you can see them, but some chickens have also shown up for today's review. There's no internal combustion engine trotting away to scare them off, right? So, moving on. So let's talk charging times. I know this is very important and a question we get from a lot of viewers. So of course, the charging time will vary depending on the battery size selected, as well as the charging technology being used, if it's AC or DC, or even the type of plug you are connecting the car to. So there's a lot of different charging times. So let's break this down as best as we can. So firstly, we have AC and DC available. AC is what you're going to be charging with at home and on much of the public network as well. This uses the standard Type 2 connection, which is found at the front of the vehicle in this case. Now, the best case scenario when charging this car on AC for the smaller battery is a 5-hour charge when using a 3-phase 11 kilowatt supply. On the larger battery, on the same technology, you will charge the car in 7 hours. Again, this is best case scenario, but it's nice to see the 3-phase charger is standard with the models we're getting here in Malta. Now, the worst case scenario, going to the other end of the spectrum, if you're charging on single phase, using a 3-pin domestic socket, which I don't recommend, although you can do it, this car will take smaller battery 25 hours to charge, larger battery 33 hours to charge. Now of course there's a lot of in-betweens. In fact, what I'm showing you now is a table from EV Database, a popular website which has all the charging times listed based on the technology you are employing. So if you get a faster home charging system, which I'd recommend, you can charge at different speeds. Single phase is the most common option in Malta for home supply, and there I would recommend the 3.7 kilowatt charger, so you can get some faster charging times with this vehicle. Now let's talk about rapid charging. DC rapid charge. This is the technology you're going to be using when rapid charging this car on, say, a highway situation. Even though in Malta we do have a few 50 kilowatt rapid charging stations, but on the European network, if you're on the highways, this is the charging technology you want to use because it charges the car essentially the fastest. So here we have seen an upgrade from the previous Kona. So the previous Kona could charge at a maximum rate of 77 kilowatts. In the new Kona, you get the same 77 kilowatts for the smaller battery, although the charge curve has changed slightly, so it does charge the car a bit faster. But for the larger battery variant, here is where we get the upgrade. You can charge up to a maximum of 100 kilowatts, which will charge both cars more or less in around 40 minutes. So this car is the absolute luxury when it comes to regeneration options. Regeneration being the car's ability to slow down and recharge the battery as you are driving. We've seen all the technologies, right? But this is probably the first car which sort of brings all the options available for the driver to choose for him or herself, which I like a lot. And I'm going to be going in detail about this in my driving review. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that episode, because there is a lot to talk about when it comes to the Regen. But I will give you a spoiler, right? There is actually one pedal driving now available on the Kona, something we were missing from that first generation vehicle. So that their iPedal mode is now available. The ability to drive the car literally with just the gas pedal. I keep calling it a gas pedal. Accelerator pedal. No gas here. The new Kona also gets vehicle to load, something we didn't have in the older car. And there's actually two options here. So you have a standard domestic socket at the back of the car, enough to say power a laptop or a small electrical appliance. And then optionally you can get the vehicle to load adapter that sticks to the outside of the car, and there's an ability to power a number of appliances. In fact, in my launch video where I was at the launch of the new Kona, they actually powered the sort of lights and projection system all using the vehicle to load adapter, which is very cool to see. Now the Kona has always been a range king, right? So the smaller battery variant gets you 360 kilometers WLTP. How does that hold up in the real world? Well, in my driving video, I'll be putting that to the test. The larger battery variant gets you a class-leading 514 kilometers of range. That is plenty. And for the average driver, that means you're charging your Kona every 3 weeks or every month, right? 12 charges in a year. I mean, that is exceptional stuff. On a road trip, I can guarantee you nobody is going to drive more than 500 kilometers straight. If you do, you really have to check your bladder. In the extremely competitive electric SUV segment, which is so crowded nowadays, you have to make sure you check your boxes. And let me tell you, this Hyundai Kona checks a lot of them, and nearly all of them. If you enjoyed today's review, make sure you hit that like button, and a comment is always appreciated below as well. The merch is available on the store if you want to support a bit more, and you can now join as a YouTube member as well, and you get a number of perks there. I'd like to thank Peter for helping out with all the technical, Motors Inc. and Hyundai Malta for their support with today's review. But as always, I hope me and the new Hyundai Kona and the chickens that were here today as well have convinced you that the future is electric.